Hello everybody, it's Matthew Street and welcome to my channel. I appreciate you being here, friends. And I am out in nature, as you can see. I am in the outdoors, folks, in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, a favorite spot for Mrs. Street and myself for the past 40 years since we first got married. We love it up here. And we took a little trip up here and I said, well, how can I incorporate a video related to the Beatles, the Beatles up here in the White Mountains? Well, I decided to do a video called The Beatles as Nature Intended, or The Beatles, Nature, whatever. There'll be some title for this involving the Beatles and nature, I promise you that. And folks, as I'm up here, I thought about the Beatles and nature and I said, well, the Beatles, when they have done music, are not overtly obvious when it comes to nature in a lot of instances. They're certainly not like John Denver, who was very obvious and upfront in your face about nature and his love of the mountains, the ocean, the environment, trees, animals, and whatnot, preserving what we have in nature. The Beatles, well, they were a little more subtle about it. They did have some overt examples, like Mother Nature's Son, or the Sun songs, like Here Comes the Sun, Sun King, Good Day Sunshine, I'll Follow the Sun. So on some level, they do sing about nature a little bit, like in your face, more direct. Child of Nature, John Lennon's song before it became Jealous Guy, Rain, etc. Songs like that are overtly about nature. Or in the solo world, you got Heart of the Country, Mull of Kintyre, Rain Clouds, Mamounia. But then you get more into an area where it's singing about a particular item or thing in nature that's overt, but with more of the imagery of using nature as imagery. Like, for example, Ringo does it with Feeling the Sunlight on his Rewind Forward EP. Yes, it's talking about the beauty of sunlight and how the sun is important, but it's getting into more imagery with the sun related to life, with all is good in life with the sun, or the sun about sharing love and having a warmth in your heart and soul, just having fun. That imagery of the sunlight Ringo uses in that particular song. With the Beatles and the solo Beatles, though, nature is not directly a reference to in your face. It's more deeper than that with the Beatles. It's not that simple of just a description of nature. Like I said, I gave you some examples of songs where it is, but with the Beatles, they use nature in that emotional imagery sense. Whereas nature is used, or items in nature are used to be like, represent the cycle of life or nature, or evoke resilience in people, in our spirit. An awakening, so to speak, a spiritual awakening in many instances. They use nature in that regard. They'll use nature in the outdoors to relate to love, to joy, having a sense of relief or optimism in your life with nature. And certainly with the Beatles and nature, they sing about and talk about the solace of being into yourself and in one with your spirit, and an escape. They use it in that sense. For example, a great one is Sunshine Life for Me by George and Ringo. I mean, that is the perfect example of what I'm getting at here, where it's about nature, the sunshine, but it's about life. You know, it's combining those two things, nature overtly like this, but also with the spiritual sense, life, emotions. And I think George and Ringo hit it right there perfectly with that song, Sunshine, Life for Me, Sail Away Raymond. But then you have other songs that do the same type of thing. You have John's Old Dirt Road, Free as a Bird, certainly Across the Universe, uses images of the world around us, but in a more spiritual and emotional sense. Paul with Golden Earth Girl, Country Dreamer, Calico Skies, and Two of Us would fit well into this category. But a big one I always think of when I think of nature, for me anyway, it's always been personally, I thought of nature with the Beatles, but more life and the importance of being free, as There's a Place. I mean, it's one of their earliest songs, and yet there's a place where I can go when I feel low, when I feel blue. Something like this, the beauty that God has created here with trees and water, creatures all around us, fish, land and sea, all around me right now, as you can see. I mean, it's just a beautiful place. And I think these songs by the Beatles evoke the beauty and wonder of nature, but they take it more into an emotional sense. They relate it to what's inside of us as people, as human beings, and our human experience, and certainly our emotional and spiritual experience. So that's it, folks. I just wanted to do a quick video up here in the White Mountains of New Hampshire to say nature is beautiful, the outdoors is beautiful, and the Beatles certainly take the imagery of this beauty and put it into their music. In a sense, we can all relate to it in our emotional sense, in our spiritual and human sense. So thanks all for listening to this, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back soon with another video. Love you all, folks. Bye-bye.